to all those above me that watch over me, to all of you, my fave parapeeps on this side of the veil, welcome. This is Shawn Whittington's Paranormal Ministry Live 2.0. I'm your host, Father Shawn Whittington. I'm an ordained priest with the United States Old Catholic Church, a fully professed brother with the Old Catholic Benedictines of Immaculate Mary, a team member of the Society of St. Benedict, co-founder of Ghost Be Gone. Yeah, I'm that guy that was on Eli Roth Presents the Legion of Exorcists. And welcome to the show. I'm coming to you live from my haunted house, my very haunted house. Been quiet today, but we got a great guest, and you all already knew that. That's why you tuned in. Um, if there's anything you want to know about my wife and I and our ministry work, go to our website, www.ghost-b-gone.biz. And when you're there to visit, there's a lot of cool things to see. My books are there. Part of the proceeds of every sale of every copy of my books go to support stjude.org, St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, Nevada, and the ASPCA. So you get to help some of the neediest children on the planet and the animals too. The books from the website come autographed and enclosed in a house blessing kit. You can get them a lot less expensive at Amazon. Um, what else is there? My course, Introduction to Spiritual Warfare, is there if you're interested in that and would like to enroll. There's also a place where you can make an appointment to speak with me about your spiritual issues. Not paranormal, but spiritual issues. What else do I want to tell you guys other than I feel really good today? I hope each and every one of you feel good. And you know, today is Friday, so that means I have a very special permanent Friday co host. So let's bring her on. Please welcome to the show my friend, my publisher, the one and only Annette Munich. Unmute. Yeah, I think you're muted.
I did that last time
There
too.
you go. That's okay. It's okay.
Um,
It happens.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here. How you doing, Sean?
Hanging in there, just nothing really ever changes. You know me. Nothing really ever changes much for me. You look very pretty today. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing pretty good here.
Okay, this is what we're going to do. And you and I talked briefly about this before we bring on our very special guest who's waiting patiently in the green room. I mentioned to you that we were going to go right to the mailbag because I looked in the prayer urn and there were no prayers in there. I have been so busy it got started getting full. So I spent the last couple of days praying for everybody and praying every prayer for every prayer request in there. And I didn't realize I had prayed them all. But then it dawned on me that last week I never checked the mailbag, and that started getting full. So there's probably at least, and I answered some of those. There's probably at least one or two more in there. So we'll check that bag. But then you had mentioned to me to please offer up a prayer for your son-in-law
Right.
who whose cancer has returned, and that's
Yeah.
that hits me close to home because been been there, done that, and I'm really sorry to hear that. Uh, and I know his name is Joe, and I know that everybody that's close to him and loves him is probably very upset. So, tell you what, let's offer up a prayer for him. I hope this prayer is appropriate. You know, I sometimes drop magazines and old newspapers off at this old folks home. I call it old folks home. I'm an old guy, and that's I don't know if that's appropriate to say, but I pop into this old folks home and drop off old magazines and old newspapers in there. And I'm a bit of a I'm just gonna throw it out there. I'm a bit of a smart ass. I don't care who you are, little kid, old person, my age, whatever. And I make them laugh there. And I had a nurse there tell me that, it's amazing how much a sense of humor and laughter helps, especially with the people that are sick here and know that they're dying or whatever. And I'm going to pray and confident that Joe's going to make a 100% recovery from this. But it is important. So the first prayer that I opened up to in the book says a prayer for health, wisdom, and a sense of humor. So I'm going to pray that prayer because there's a reason why I must have opened up right to that prayer. So this prayer I am offering up for Annette's son-in-law Joe. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Oh Lord, give me a good digestion as well as something to digest. Give me health of body as well as the sense to keep it healthy. Give me a holy soul, O Lord, which keeps its eyes on beauty and purity, so that it will not be daunted on seeing sin. Give me a soul that knows nothing of boredom, groans, and sighs. Never let me be overly concerned for the inconsistent thing that I call me. Lord, give me a sense of humor so that I may take some happiness from this life and share it with others. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the
Amen.
I just decided that's one of my newest favorite prayers. I love that. I've never prayed that prayer before. I love that prayer. That is now Joe's prayer.
It's lovely.
Before we bring out our very special guest, is there anything you would like to tell everybody out there about you or anything else you'd like to talk about or bring up?
Well, we're this close to putting out Called Into Darkness by Chris DeFlorio. And he's going to be on the show May 11th.
Okay.
And that is like a really interesting book. He's a retired New York City police officer, and his wife was a New York City medic, for the fire department, first
Yep.
responders. And it's their paranormal experiences and their ministry. So it's just a really, really interesting book.
That sounds interesting, and I'm really looking forward to meeting him. I'm really looking forward to meeting. Well, I already met him in the green room before we went live, but I've been really looking forward to meeting our guest today. And we have another one of your friends, and my friend too, who you published her book. Kelly
Kel-
Schaefer will be here next Friday, so that's going to be awesome. So we're getting. I'm trying to get as many of your special friends who you've published work for who I find very interesting, and we'll eventually work our way through them.
Are you holding their insulin back? Is that why they're calling you friends? What's going on there?
Zach is. I want to apologize to everybody for Zach. He is on a zinger high right now. God bless him. I don't want to talk too much about it. And just in case his wife is watching the show, she probably doesn't know he's got that stashed down in the office. So he's on a zinger high right now. But brothers and sisters, um, all I can, you know what? I'm going to, because Annette knows him so much better than I know him. I'm going to let you introduce him and bring him on. How's that?
That's great. Um, I'm just really happy. I've been looking forward to this. And this is actually the first time in the green room that he and I talked to each other and we could see each other. We have never done a FaceTime thing or anything like that
Wow.
before. And I've known him for years. So he's an author. His first book was Tree Spirits and Wood Wisdom with me. His first book with me. And then we put out Sacred Trees last autumn. And they're both especially the first book, but the second book as well, reference books to the spiritual meanings of different kinds of trees and wood, of course. And he's also a woodworker and he makes beautiful pieces and he's a storyteller. So, and he's from, well, right now he lives in Louisville, Kentucky. He's not from there originally, but um, we'd like to welcome Thomas to the show.
Thomas Freese.
Hey, thanks, y'all. Thank you very much.
How are
Very
you, brother?
exciting.
Nice
I'm
to
doing
meet you.
great. This is really lovely for me to join you all and to reach out to some folks and have an opportunity to share about the work that I do.
Well, I'm going to tell you something right off the bat. Um, I just have this feeling, and I get this feeling every once in a while. I have a feeling that we're going to be good friends. I just get this feeling.
I
Thank
knew
you.
that was going to happen.
Having said that,
Hide your insulin.
Having said that, um, I do have a few questions for you, which I will get to eventually. And I actually even have a personal um, tree spirit and elemental story to throw at you if we have time later. But I decided I would just, and I say this every week and then I so rudely interrupt, but I decided since um, Annette introduced you to me and was responsible for getting you on the show, I'm going to let her go ahead and chat with you for a while. How's that?
Sounds great.
Well, I'm going to ask him how he got started with all of this. And then I'd love to hear the tree story, Shawn. And his books are filled with tree stories, particularly Sacred Trees has a lot of tree stories, actual people's experiences. It's very interesting.
I happen to know in your bio, I always love it when I see the word storyteller. That's an art of its own. So, Thomas, I just want you to know this is your show. You don't have to worry about talking quickly and getting your answers out and being done. Talk as long as you want to talk whatever you want to talk about. Go for it.
Thanks, y'all, very much. So, obviously, I can say just like every other child on the planet, where did it begin? Children are instinctively go to trees. Maybe they're upset or they just want to commune with nature. So, we all had those favorite trees growing up. But as far as specifically the metaphysical connection, I've been studying metaphysical things. I was on a journey and ended up, being an intuitive channeler, medium, instrument. The names change, whatever you want to call it. But I was invited to be a guest speaker in Anchorage, Alaska, at a metaphysical event, and I hadn't made any wands at all. I made wood jewelry, which I started in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and it was modeled after the Zuni fetishes. So there were bears and coyotes and snakes and everything. And it was the 80s, so it was a lot of folk art. And I did both brightly painted wood crafts, and I also did the natural. And I really liked the natural kind of better. But anyway, there was in Anchorage setting up on a Friday before the metaphysical event, and two ladies walked up. And I had some holiday ornaments, Christmas ornaments, and one of them was like a tapered, narrow, well, I was thinking of, like a wooden icicle, and it was carved in a spiral. And the lady picked it up, pointed it at the other lady, and the second lady gave this knowing nod. And then the first lady turned to me and said, "I've never met a wand maker." And I said, "Oh, that's not a wand. That's like a wooden icicle." And she shakes her head and goes, "No, I can feel the energy. You're making wands." So I thought about it. Could I make a wand? How would I make a wand? And would people buy wands? So I started making wands. I got back to Louisville. This is 2012. And I started making wands. And then I was selling these wands. So I got all my stuff on the table at crafts events or metaphysical. And people would choose different wands. And they're all different woods. It's like a personality test, kind of like Ollivanders, to see, what are you drawn to? And then I kind of know, have a feel for what that person is like, by what they're choosing. Well, I thought, well, surely a pine wand and a willow wand and an oak wand, they're different vibe, they're different energy. So I looked online, I found some meaning, and I printed it out and I said, oh, here's, a little bit of what I found online. But those websites, they never said where they got the information. And they said, you can't copy this. Like if you want to do a book, you can't copy it. Well, fair enough on the second, but the first seemed a little bit suspicious. So I work psychic fairs. I got a lot of gifted, talented friends. They're healers, they're channelers. So, and I'm also a woodworker. So I started sending my friends wood samples, unidentified. I just took a Sharpie marker, number 14, number 30. And of course, I kept track of the numbers. They had no idea what they were holding. So my gifted friends would hold them. They would channel, whether it's, you might say, third-party information, or the tree spirit was directly talking to them. And there were three ladies in the first book, Tree Spirits and Wood Wisdom. And so I started collecting these and thinking, I'd really like to put this into a book because it's my own, original effort. I started collecting testimonials, people that bought my wands, and I don't use them, but they do, and they had stories. People that bought my wood jewelry, and they had stories about how their life changed. So there was just a lot of information. I have a story in the first book. My friend Sybil, she grew up on a farm in Oklahoma. Her daddy was a water witch. So he would douse for where the farmers would dig the wells. She said if they listened to him, they only dug once. And so there's all these really cool stories connected to tree woods. There's science, there's the metaphysical, and through was it Rick Hayes? Um, I found out about Annette being a publisher, and so we matched up, and I got my first tree book published. It had about 130 different tree woods. Every single one, was something that a friend would hold and channel the information. And unlike the websites that never identified where they got the information and said you can't copy it, I was very transparent. You can read in the first book, each lady it was 3 ladies that were my channelers. As they channel in, I've got their first initials. At the end of the book, I give their websites, I give the information that they want to share about the work that they do. So I'm totally transparent, totally the opposite of what I encountered. And that was the first. I mean, as soon as I finished the first tree book, it was pretty obvious. Oh, there's so many cool, amazing woods that I didn't even get into. It just takes a while to find woods online, to purchase them, or for someone to gift me, something from their backyard. Lightning struck wood, 5,000-year-old bog oak, fragrant woods from other countries, agar and sandalwood, and it just goes on and on and on. But back to Anchorage and the lady that got me started with making wands, it turned out that she was the tribal healer for her First Nations Alaskan tribe.
Oh, wow.
So I think she would know energy.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
those serendipitous flukes that if you're mind and heart and open, you're off and running. So people would buy my wands. I started making them kind of fancy, serpentine and spiral and wood burning Celtic interlaces, along the way. And then it was a loop that was returning to me. I was learning from others. Some people say, "Oh yeah, that's that tree guy. That's a tree expert." And I'd say, I'm sorry, that doesn't feel comfortable. I'm not a tree expert. I'm not a tree scientist, but I'm a learner. Maybe one of us is an uphill skier a little bit, but I think we're all learners. And so I'm learning from all the submissions. And, I have all these psychic helpers, channelers that did the readings on the woods for me. People that donated woods, people that told me stories of encounters with tree spirits. So I just really, really enjoyed doing both books. My previous 10 books were collections of ghost stories, and that was a lot of fun. I did both fiction, being a storyteller, and then I also did a lot of nonfiction. I was a Shaker singer at the old Shaker village near Harrodsburg, Kentucky. That's a whole nother story about the Shaker spirits. And we would sing and dance, and the Shaker spirits would join us. So I just wrote book after book after book, Ghost Spirits and Angels. And people submit to me, they share with me spirit photographs. That's a whole other topic we could talk about sometime, like the photo and the poster behind me. I have a book of Civil War ghost stories. I just love writing. I think I need to join AA, not Alcoholics Anonymous, but Authors Anonymous.
Yeah.
So I teamed up with a really talented and gifted historian, Brian Bush. So this is a whole nother topic to talk about is Civil War ghost stories. So one book after another with various publishers, including like this book cover here has a photograph of a spirit from a castle in Wales. Added to that, I also work as an intuitive, or whichever title you want to choose, the nom de guerre, of the day. And it was pretty obvious when I was growing up. My dad used to always tell me, "You're too sensitive." And then I started working the psychic fairs, not as a reader, but as a vendor. And the other psychics would come up, and one guy said, "You'd make more money as a reader than as a vendor." So that's a whole other, parallel story about how I was developing these gifts as a storyteller, as an author, getting into the tree woods, learning about palm reading and tarot cards. And my Catholic mom actually gave me my first set of tarot cards. So everyone knew before I did. So I just have so many amazing, wonderful stories to share about the tree woods and many other topics. And I'm just really grateful. Let's see, this one that I'm wearing now, I call Picking Up Beef for Dinner. and it has a spaceship, and it's spiriting away a cow in kind of a Western scene. So I've always been fascinated with UFOs, and I put my fascinations and obsessions into my artwork, and I'm grateful that other people appreciate that as well.
That is amazing. You have quite the story, and I just had a feeling this was going to happen. I'll probably end up doing a whole series with you, and every time you come back, we'll just go down another rabbit hole with your extensive background and all this stuff. You mentioned, well, of course, it's going to stick out to me. You mentioned growing up in a Catholic family, so my mother, uh, the most devoutly Catholic person I knew. May she rest in peace, but also very spiritual woman. Father didn't get baptized till very late in life, but he was a God fearing man, grew up in Oklahoma. Um, Christian belief system, but never a baptized Catholic until much later in life. But how did all of this? Did this? Are you still a Catholic? And whether you are or aren't, did your gift and your experiences and your passions for all this other stuff affect your religious belief system at all?
Thank you for the chance to talk about that, because at an early age, unlike my brothers and sisters, I was really, really wanting to find out what's going on in the universe. Um, so one way to talk about it is when all the other kids in the late 1960s were learning how to smoke dope and get drunk, I was actually into astronomy. And we had to wait 6 years to get a really nice Christmas present, having, six of us kids. And what I asked for, and I got, and I think it was about 1969, was a telescope. So I would set my little funky 1960s alarm, that would rattle off the bedside and table, and all the other family was asleep, and I would get up 11 o'clock, midnight, and I'd go out in our backyard. And back then, outdoors, it was actually dark. You could see the stars pretty good back then, without all the interfering light so much that we have now. Now, at the time, I was learning the constellations. I was doing astrophotography. I studied at McDonald Planetarium in St. Louis before I even got into high school. I was like this little astronomy nerd. But what I didn't know at the time was actually learning how to meditate and be alone with the universe. That was revealed much later. So I was learning to listen, to be present, to just sit there under the stars. The sky starts at your feet. So that was kind of like the beginning. And I would always look to the south, toward Sagittarius, the center of the universe. And I just felt like I'm part of something just much larger. I come from someplace different. So fast forward, high school, I actually became a Catholic charismatic. So I grew up, pretty much standard Catholic, but in the 1970s, the international charismatic movement was really popping. And so there was a guy that went to my Catholic high school. He came back and he witnessed to me. I found Jesus, which is unusual for a Catholic boy. And then I really got into the gifts of the Spirit, prayed, for the gift of tongues and everything. Ended up in college, Catholic college. And but at the same time, all this information and exciting things were coming in. So I met folks that were into Edgar Casey, and I started looking at those metaphysical things. Is it real? Are there auras? Can we see auras? And I met some friends that belong to the ARE, the Association for Research and Enlightenment. And I met Yulin Casey, and I started reading, the ARE study group and reading all that. So this was moving, in a certain kind of software program, like a track running along with my regular life. And then got married, moved out to New Mexico, then divorced. But what I would do is I'd walk the mesas. And this is an incredible meditative thing. I worked retail with lines going out the store. It was so busy. We would have Hollywood people would come in the 1980s. They were all buying homes there in Santa Fe and Tesuque. And I'd look up, a lady paid with a check, and I looked up and said, Jessica Lang. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, it's Jessica Lang. So I needed a break from that intensity of the retail. But at the same time, when I worked retail, I was learning how to read people. A customer would come in and I would get that vibe and, like, where are they at emotionally? What's going on here? So there's that subtext to all the different retail interaction. But I was really learning how to read people. So I started getting more and more into metaphysical studies. I got into the Urantia book and Course in Miracles. And I was really just opening up and on a journey of questioning and trying to learn. So I was ready for a change. I moved to Lexington, Kentucky, and I became a Shaker singer. And I started studying the spirituality of the Shakers. And that's a whole other story started by a woman, and amazing story. And anyway, so all this kind of converged when I started working the psychic fairs as a vendor, and then it was obvious that I was also ready to work as a reader. I bought books on palmistry. I was teaching myself palmistry. People would come up, and even though I was a vendor, I'd say, "Can I look at your hand? I'm just trying to learn." And the organizer, we were in Tennessee once, and he came up and said, "I saw you're looking at people's hands," and I said, "Oh, I'm just trying to learn. I'm not charging money." And he laughed. He said, "Our next show's in Lexington, where I was living, and we don't have a palm reader." So it's like, your kids and you're all there at the pool, and there you go out on the high dive, and it's like, okay, you're all watching. You're gonna flop, or you're gonna jump, or you're gonna dive, but something's gonna happen. So that's when I started working as whatever we call it, intuitive channel or whatever. Um, so I had set aside the woodcrafts for a while. I worked at the artist in residence program around Kentucky. Stayed at all these amazing. Kentucky has such incredible history, so many haunted locations, and I stayed. I could tell you so many stories where people put me up. I stayed in old homes and bed and breakfast in Bardstown, and just anyway. But I started working the psychic fairs as a vendor, then as a reader, and then this author was in me. I was actually accused of plagiarism when I was in Catholic high school, where I wrote a really amazing short story, and the priest was handing it back, and he said, "What book did you copy this from?" Totally didn't believe that I wrote it. So I tried to tell him that I wrote it. This is back before you know. Word processors and everything. So I actually had, like 6 handwritten versions, with pencil drafts. Anyway, he watched my work for the whole rest of the year, and then came final exam. Um, he passed out 2, I don't know if you remember, mimeograph sheets, the smelly, sheets, the exam to all the other kids. And then he brought some special paper to me. It was blank. He pointed at a painting on the wall, a print, and said, "Write about it." So back in 1972, they
Wow.
didn't do right. Yeah, they didn't do writing on demand in 1972. So I thought, oh my God, this is my final exam. He doesn't even believe that I can write. Got to wait 3 weeks for the grade. I got an A. But then I thought, this just gets me into trouble. So I set aside the writing. But in 1998, it started coming back like a monster, scratching, at the basement door. It had to be let out. So that's when I started collecting my first book, the stories, because I was a Shaker singer. And Shaker Village is very active spiritually. And we were singing. We were performing in the 1820 meeting house. So we were calling the Shaker spirits in. So I asked permission from Shakertown. I wasn't an employee. I was just, a volunteer singer. And then so I just got rolling with writing the books, and working as an intuitive, and working as an artist in residence going around the state of Kentucky. So that's the Cliff Notes. That's the short version.
Have you ever been to Lilydale?
I have not, but I've heard a lot of wonderful things about it. And then, of course, in Indiana, there's Camp Chesterfield. I've been there. And then there's Casadega, is another intentional psychic community in Florida.
That's pretty amazing. Annette,
Yes.
I can see the thoughts and the
Well,
questions
see,
bubbling up.
I knew you would like Thomas, and when I talk to him on the phone, if he's not too busy and I'm not too busy, we can talk for an hour and a half, and it'll go across so many topics. It'll be just hysterical how many things get talked about. And then we also like to talk about angels, a lot of angel stories. And as you can see in the book behind him, ghost spirits and angels. So he's a collector of angel stories as well. And that would be a whole interesting show, I think, that people would like.
Absolutely. Let me make sure everybody knows www.thomaslfreese, FREESE.com, correct?
Thank you. Yeah, I tell people it's pretty sucky. It's 20 years old. There's no click and purchase. I only had 3 books out. But yeah, they can go there. Or Facebook is where I'm a lot more active, under my name, Thomas Freese. And maybe I have a picture of my book, or some wood crafts. So I'm posting a lot on my events that I do. whether it's storytelling or a metaphysical event, or like, this podcast. A lot active on Facebook. The website is just kind of a placeholder. I've kind of had a little bit of a buffer because I go in to a lot of conservative counties in Kentucky, and so I don't have a website for that intuitive work that I do. And the kids, though, they look at my eyes. I'm telling ghost stories. A lot of time I get hired. Oh, Mr. Freeze, it's October. Come tell the kids ghost stories. And I'm telling ghost stories, but the kids are looking at my eyes like he knows, and they're desperate to talk with me because nobody went. Little Johnny, little Susie, they don't want to hear about it, and that's a whole nother topic about kids seeing ghosts and gifted children. And I've got a lot of stories that it's either the child told it to me or it's from adults, but it happened when they were a child, and where things kind of get cut off sometimes when the adults around them don't support what they do. So I was at Wilkerson Elementary. I was doing a residency last year in Louisville, 10 days. And of course, I was telling some ghost stories. The kids saw that I was an author. I had my books. This fifth grade boy, he watched. He knew exactly when I'd be in the hallway with nobody else. So he timed it. He waited. There I met with him, and basically he confessed and said, I see dead people. And so these kids, they have nobody to talk to. The parents are in denial. I believe that we have developmental levels. And of course, you study that in Psych 101 for physical and emotional and social. But we don't talk about is we have psychic developmental levels. And many times the parent of a child, they're maybe at a 13-year-old psychic developmental level because something happened when they were 13 years old and then they got shut down. And so when their little kid, says, I saw something, mommy, or, I saw this lady, and then later, it turns out that it's the deceased grandmother or whatever, a great grandmother. But they're reporting it to basically like a 13-year-old, even though they're chronologically in their 40s. So not only do we have all those developmental levels that we know about, we have psychic developmental levels. So it's a loop. And the way we're socializing children in our society is, we're responding to them at the psychic developmental level that we're at, which may be a lot lower, than 40 or 50 years old or whatever. So I feel like when I'm doing storytelling, live performance with children, they are getting this permission, whether it's a folk tale or a true story. And I'll tell them, straight up, they'll ask all kinds of questions. Mr. Freeze, can ghosts hurt you? And then I'll attend to that question. But they can look in my eyes and they're like desperate to talk about these things. And I've gone into not regular, in addition to regular public schools, I go into psychiatric lockdown. And those children with the DSM diagnosis, they are some of the most gifted, tuned in children, to the max, as you can imagine. And so, I'll ask them, well, I'm going to tell you some ghost stories, kids. I'm going to talk about black-eyed kids or, crazy Ouija board stories or whatever, which they just like eat up with a spoon. But then I'll say, maybe y'all have some experiences, and like all the hands go up and, they're just desperate to talk to someone. It's like, it's like sexual abuse was for a long time. We just swept it under the rug. And then we, found ways to, good touch, bad touch program. I'm a counselor. I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor and a board certified registered art therapist. And so, we just kind of started making it the appropriate conversation, not the sex talk, but good touch, bad touch. And so, nothing's going to change unless we can find a way to talk about it. It's true for sexual abuse. It's true for violence. And it's also true for spiritual activity in the home. And unless it happens to be a particular religion where they deal with that, then, the kids kind of left high and dry. Some of the stories, like in Ghost Spirits and Angels, they're from children that I call psychic attractors. When they were young, all the shit, was happening to them. So my friend Dorothy, she grew up Mormon in Salt Lake City, and she would have pioneer ghosts like, walk through her room. She would see them. She started having, like the poltergeist thing was going crazy because she was so, tuned in. So one day her dad picked her up from high school and was going to take her home. She's like, Dad, why are you taking me out of school? Oh, you'll see. So they arrived and the Mormon elders were in the family room. Like it was an intervention. And Dorothy was so pissed. She got so angry. She said, really? This is why you took me out of school? So she just went off and huffed back to her room. She didn't even slam her door. Well, the Mormon elders followed her down the hallway, got to the open doorway, and she said their eyes got really big. Whatever happened, they just turned around and left and never came back. So these are the stories that I have, both from children and also from adults. But it happened when they were children, and I just feel like these stories need to be out there. And if it's in a format of, okay, got a, oh, Kentucky Storytellers come and going to tell them the grade school and tell them ghost stories, that's fine, because I can sneak in all kinds of metaphysical stuff. And the stories that I tell, whether it's a ghost story or not, it's very layered. I have a story by Richard Kennedy called The Mouse God. And it's a really cute story, but just like Jesus and the parables, it's very layered. And it's kind of a nod and a need to know. And the children or the adult, whoever's listening, they understand the code if they're at a certain developmental level spiritually.
Do you have any children's books?
I do. I do. I mean, they're all general readership. Um, because I was like 3 grades ahead when I was a reader as a kid. But this one is definitely, dedicated toward children. Halloween Sleepwalker, I call it fiction that falls not far from fact. A lot of times I'll write a fiction ghost story, and then lo and behold, a certain time later, I'll hear a very similar true story. But in this one, it's a little boy who wanders out at midnight on Halloween Eve. He encounters some witches in the cornfield, and they give him a bite of an apple. He gets the second sight. So I kind of make it, accessible, understandable in that way. And he has some adventures. He comes back, and then he plops down in bed. And in the morning, his parents are like, "Wow, you really slept in." And then they all talk about what they dreamt of, which is what they were afraid of. And he said, "Well, here's my dream, but was it really a dream?" And Dad said, "Oh, when I went to get the newspaper in the morning, the front door was open, and Mom says, 'Look at your slippers. You look like you've been out hiking in them.'" And Sissy says, "Why do you have bits of leaves and straw on your pajamas?" So what I say in the very last page, after all that story, I'll just read it to you. "Now you may never see the world of spirits and strange creatures. You may never take a bite of an enchanted apple. You may never fly in a broom or run away from ghosts, jack-o'-lanterns, and giant spiders. You may never stumble upon a secret meeting of witches, but you will have dreams. Good night."
Now
I have to add,
it's a cool little story about that. Just the other day I was looking at my phone, and you know how your phone will say 4 years ago today, 5 years ago today. And I started looking at some of the old pictures, and I found a picture of my granddaughter Jody reading that book because you sent it to her. And it was like 5 years ago, and she's sitting there with the book on her lap.
wow.
And it's funny that we're talking about it today because I just saw that picture again just the other day. I don't know if you remember that, but you did send that for her.
I do remember that, and I wanted to, it's a little thank you, obviously to you for all the wonderful work that, you've done, to date, back then with the first tree book and with what we had talked about, and, my respect for children. Children are very sophisticated spiritually. And the question is, can we adults understand? So my sister tells a story that a family friend, they're going past a hospital, and her daughter was delivered C-section there. So the daughter is Down syndrome, and Down syndrome kids don't lie. They'll tattle on themselves.
Yeah.
So the Down syndrome, yeah. And she was 10 years old in the back seat. Mom was driving and goes, "Oh, honey, that's the hospital where the doctors took you out of mommy's tummy." Girl didn't say anything. She looks up in the rearview mirror. The girl had a pout in her face. She said, "What's the matter, honey?" "Yeah, mommy, I wasn't ready to come out yet." So the mom wanted to know more about that. And then the girl started talking about before she was born. And she talked about being in heaven. She said the angels were kind of big and scary, but God held her and kept her safe. And she said, "I saw so-and-so's daughter." And she mentioned, a family friend. So mom's driving. She mentions, "Oh, so-and-so, the daughter's name." "No, mommy, not that one." Well, as far as mom knew, they only had one daughter, right? So later she rings up the family friend. "Oh, my daughter says the silliest things." She spins out the story, and then she talks about the other girl, and there's kind of quiet crying on the other end. But nobody outside the family knew that she had a stillborn
Oh,
another daughter. But here's the wisdom from the children. And so, what I tell folks is, when I'm doing ghost stories, it's like, if your kid or grandkid said there's something under the bed, guess what? There's something under the bed. If they say there's something in the closet, pay attention to it, even if you don't believe it. And I literally have stories to illustrate this. In Ghost Spirits and Angels, my friend Lois, who lived in Cincinnati, her brother and they had their son Jacob, and he did computer work and maybe military related. I can't remember. Anyway, they were up in Hawaii. 8-year-old Jacob comes out, for breakfast, in the kitchen in the morning, says, "Mommy, God is walking through the walls at night." Doesn't mean anything, right? Well, he had just seen Bruce Almighty. God was a black man. So if you interpret what the kid was saying, he's saying, "Mom, I'm seeing a native Hawaiian spirit coming through a portal in my bedroom," but he's not going to say it that way, right? So, right. To their credit, the family listened to him. They had them sketch the spirit, which is in my book, Ghost Spirits and Angels, and they hired a Hawaiian shaman. He came and he closed the portal. So once again, everyone moves up a developmental level, not only the child, but also the parents. If they could be open-minded, get help if they need it. But I have tons and tons of stories that illustrate both when the parents listened and also when they shut down the child.
Well, there's a reason. I clearly believe now there was a reason. I mean, there's so many ways this conversation today could have gone, and I believe there's a reason why we're on this topic. Not only I think are the three of us a little psychically connected right now, but I relate because I saw spirits when I was young, and the only person I felt comfortable enough to confide in was with my mom. And I don't know if it's because I've shared that story many times over the years, but many, many people reach out to me, parents, wanting to know what to do with their child who claims that they can see ghosts. So, what do you recommend? And there has to be some of them watching today or may watch the replay of this. That's very, very hard for some families to wrap their head around, and some parents to wrap their head around. Whether they're, uh, what do you say to these parents? What should they do if they truly believe not only is their child interacting with spirits or seeing spirits, but psychically gifted?
Well, I mean, it's the analogy is regular counseling and therapy. What does Dr. Phil always say? How's that working for you? Because so many times the client gets to a point of denial, right? And there's the scaffolding of pretending or denial, and they do that with the kids. Like, honey, you didn't see an orb. We live on a court, and it's just those cars that's circling around at night. I have a friend here in J-Town, in Jeffersontown, in Louisville. And when she grew up, she would play hide and seek. And of course, if it's your home, you've got the best hiding places, right? But her friends kept, finding her at these hiding places. And finally she said, "How come you guys keep finding me?" And they said, "It's very simple. We just follow that orb and it just hovers over your hiding spot." So it's just literally endless number of ways that children can present. It's their own experience. It's seeing loved ones. It's seeing ghost spirits and angels, multidimensional entities. It's having time shifts. It's having visions and dreams. I mean, it's the whole plethora of psychic phenomena, that so-called, grown-ups can experience. But my main request to the grown-ups, the custodial grown-ups, or maybe just, it's the soccer coach or the teacher at school or, someone at Kroger, at the grocery store. I mean, you never know who the child will disclose, whatever it is that they're going through. If it just feels right, they have that intuitive feeling like I can talk to this person. But I just say, please listen with an open mind, regardless of what your belief system is. We know that famous case, I remember, was made into a book about the little 5-year-old boy that had memory of past life as a naval pilot in World War II. And it's been optioned by Steven Spielberg, as a movie. And I can't remember the title of it, but the boy kept having nightmares. And there's a lot of children going around that I believe have been in World War II. And they're playing army. There's doing drawings with violent ideation. And I know that as an art therapist, trained to look for trauma presentation and different things graphically. But I just say to the parents, say to whoever the grown-ups, just listen to them. I'll give you one example. So there's a lady here in town, and she cleans homes, but not like Mary Maids. It's getting rid of the mischievous entities or whatever. So she was training her daughter, who was 19, and she said to this nice couple, they had a 3-year-old girl, special needs, that slept in the bed with mom and dad. They had an 8-year-old boy that had his own bedroom, and that's where the things are going wacky. And they said, look, we're going to come, we'll stir things up because of the work we do. Send the kids off to the grandparents. And if you have pets, no pets in the house either. So, we'll meet you at the front porch. So it was all arranged. And she arrived with their 19-year-old daughter. Okay, we're ready to do the work. Are y'all set? They said, yeah, go ahead inside. So she went one direction, and Amber, the daughter, went another. Amber ended up in the boys' bedroom, and she heard a hiss and a growl from under the bed. So they got all in a huff. They thought, well, they didn't get rid of the pets, right? So they went out to the front porch and said, look, we can't do our work unless you clear out the pets. They looked at her and said, we don't have any pets.
Yeah.
So please, folks, just, get out of denial. Just, same as Dr. Phil, just, face it. It's an issue. Get a professional. At the very least, listen to what the child has to say with an open mind. And then, maybe look around. Maybe there's someone in the area, or look online. There's a lady who wrote a book called Kids See Ghosts. I have sometimes have people come to me and they say, our daughter, is experiencing whatever in the metaphysical world. And so I say, a lot of times I'll say, well, I'm happy to help if I can. But a lot of times the family, they round up the wagons, right? And
Yeah.
we don't want our kid to think, everyone to think our kid's crazy, or, that's too special. Like, but it's a form of denial, folks. So
Where does your comfort level? I mean, you're so you're very passionate about what you do and passionate about the paranormal. When a family reaches out to you, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know you probably have gone into homes to try and find out what is it that's bothering this family. Do you have Is there a point where your comfort level stops? I have lots of psychics that go in and determine what's going on in a home, but then if they certain things they run into, they realize I'm in over my head here. I'm going to call Father Shawn. Do you have a point where your comfort level stops, or are you ready to deal with it all?
No, yes, I mean, I do know my limits, and just like any profession, like counseling and art therapy, my experience is, it's ethical to know your limits and when to refer. And I can remote view. I can say, okay, here's what I'm seeing, but I don't do clearings. I don't do that work. And so I know.
I'm going to give you permission right now. You don't have to do it during the show because we don't have a whole lot of time. I'm going to give you permission after the show. I'm going to type my address to you, and you have my permission to remote view my home because I have a lot going on here. Nothing bad. I mean, at one time we've had some some really ugly things going on here spiritually, which have been taken care of since then. But I still have a lot of. I don't know if they're attached to the property or the home, or it's because of what me and my wife do. If they are hitchhikers and they follow us home, and then when they get tired of kind of hanging around, they go on to wherever they need to go.
Right.
I give you permission to do that to my residents, and I'd be interested to see what you think, what you come up with. But
Okay.
I don't want the show to end
Right.
without you getting to chat with Annette a little bit more. I was so rudely. I'm not giving her
No,
a chance
that's
to talk to me.
okay. Everyone loves it when you talk, Shawn. Everyone loves it
No, they don't.
because you're so interesting and you have such funny stories. But I had like three different things I wanted to bring up. And here's one of my favorite books. Well, I don't usually talk about my favorite books, but it was called Mutant Message Down Under. And it was an American doctor that went and took a walkabout in the Australian outback. Have you read that? You
I have
did.
not.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you the cliff notes on it because she goes with them and the Aborigines, and when they need to eat, they will find plants. They will find water when they're thirsty. An animal will show up. They heal themselves out there. They communicate psychically.
They have this ceremony they do. I think it's called. I could be wrong. Correct me if either one of you know. I think it's called story time. or dream time or something where they're the holy people in whatever particular mob will put on these weird type hats, and they'll get on all fours and they will do these weird ceremonies where they will psychically connect for the whole mob. I think it's either dream time or story time or something, but that whole world is
But
pretty fascinating. Yeah.
just to sort of fast forward, you would love this book anyway. Oh, and the reason the chief let her go is because they were born on the very same day, very same year, and he took that as a sign.
Oh.
But then eventually along the way, she says to him, how do you do this? How do you guys are communicating telepathically? You're talking to the plants and the animals. And I mean, they go out in the outback and they always find their way back and they're always fed. They always find water. And he said, we're the way people should be. Um, our modern society now, you're mutants because you don't spend enough time in the quiet. You don't spend enough time in nature. Your brain is filled with all kinds of things, so you disconnect. And I brought that up because I really believe that the natural state of being is that people have these instincts and different kinds of intuition, psychic ability. I believe that that's the natural way to be, and that we've mostly morphed into a society that has turned the volume down on that, and then they don't know whether to trust it or not when it happens. So I love that book. And he and I were talking the other day about the Joplin tornado, which I lived in that area when that happened, but I wasn't there that day. And the children, different children that didn't know each other, no connection. And they were talking about the butterfly people, that the butterfly people came out of the sky and helped them. And that so now they have a mural in Joplin about the butterfly people, which of course
Wow.
are angels,
Yeah.
but for little kids that were scared and were praying. So that's a really nice story. And he's got a lot of angel stories, and I like angel stories. So
I do
I'd love
too.
to do an angel thing. And the third thing I was
Absolutely.
going to say is when I was having experiences happening to me when I was a younger person, and this was so typical back then, it was just like, oh, well, you were dreaming. No, I wasn't. I was awake and the light was on. Well, you think you were awake and the light was on, but you were dreaming. And then, like with my dad, I mentioned something that happened again. And he said, oh my God, you mean that really happened to you? You're still telling that story? And I said, yes. Because he had just, they just blow it off as the crazy things kids think of. And you got a lot of imagination, and you were probably watching something on TV before you fell asleep, and that made you dream that. And, you know, um, half wanting to sweep it under the rug and half not wanting to deal with it. So,
But what about Thomas's? You've edited some of Thomas's books, correct?
oh, I did two of Thomas's books.
Well, I now I feel bad because I know you've
There
had
it
some
is. There's
crazy
the one
stuff.
that we did in the autumn, Sacred
You
Trees.
had some crazy things happen to you both times editing both my books. How about when you did Thomas's books? Anything interesting happened to
Thomas's
you?
books aren't scary.
But I mean, you might have some other type of
Not really.
spiritual
I don't
thing happen.
I don't know if I even told Thomas that sometimes things happen to me when I'm doing the books. Like I feel like there's powers that be that don't always like this information to go out there. But his information is pretty much benign and not something that anybody would want to stop. Although strange little things could happen to me at any time. And I would see that as kind of like, in a lot of ways, just kind of a reassurance of a serendipitous thing, synchronicity thing to just, show me like that the angels or the spirit world around me are just kind of But his book, oh, there you go. There's one of his comfort birds. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, those I stalked you a little bit, Thomas, this past week, and saw many amazing things that you're into. I'm into all of that. I'm telling you, brother, I'm into all of that. I'm going to after the show today. Not only am I going to send you my address for you to remote view, but I'm going to. I think I'm already booked out through the end of July. I'm booking now, I believe, for August. If you don't mind booking out that far, I'll throw you a couple of dates and you just tell me what you'd really like, what topic you'd really like to go after when you come back. Um, and we'll do that. And I'll try to, before the year's over, I'll try to get you back a couple, three times and do a little series with you. I think you're a fascinating gentleman. And if you had fun, if you didn't have fun and don't want to come back, I understand.
Well, I mean, I didn't really get to. I mean, we were talking about the other stuff, which is great. So I didn't even really get to talk about the woods. So, that would be great to. And I just
Yeah.
mention really quick. This bird is made out of holly, and holly is for those who take up the fight for the benefit of others. All the trees are ruled by a particular planet, and holly is ruled by Mars. Now, J.K. Rowling knew exactly what she was doing when she researched for which wizard had what particular tree wood wand. Did you know which wizard in the series had the holly wand? It was Harry Potter.
Interesting.
Holly is for those who take up the fight for the benefit of others. And
I
there's a
love the
lady.
Celtic. I love the Celtic artwork.
Oh yeah, thanks so much. So
Yeah.
it's like a personality test when I have 30 wands on the table to see who's drawn to holly. Now there's a lady that had a wand made out of holly that I made her, and she was trying to clear a mischievous entity out of a home Victorian place in Cincinnati. And she tried everything. She could see the ghost was all smug. It was a guy, and he was just laughing at her. And she tried the crystal candle salt. Nothing worked. She said she pulled out the holly wand. His eyes got really big. He backed up. She said, I just wrapped that sucker up and sent him on his way.
Yeah, very cool.
Pretty interesting.
Brother, I love you and respect you. I think you're just a cool dude. I'm so happy that Annette introduced us. I will I will definitely throw you my address, throw you some dates for you to pick from for you to come back. And before we get cut off here, I will is there anything you'd like to say before we kick you out of here?
Oh, just if anyone wants to connect, Facebook is really convenient. Um, so I guess, yeah, whatever Facebook link or they could find me. And if someone wants to contact me, that's great. If they have a story, I'm always collecting encounters with ghost spirits and angels. I have UFO stories. Um, I have spirit stories, which are not the same as ghosts, and I could delineate that, another time. But ghost spirits and angels, and just look forward to connecting with folks and y'all anytime it works to come back.
Very cool, brother. I want you to have a wonderful remainder of your Friday and your weekend. You take care, brother. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, y'all. Thank you.
Thanks,
Later.
Thomas. It was
Good night,
fun.
Thomas. Bye bye.
You bet.
Cool dude. Thank you so much for introducing us. I hope he had fun. I didn't mean to put him on the spot. I hope he had fun and he'll come
I
back.
think he did. He really is. When you talk about somebody being multifaceted, I would
Well,
say that when you talk about spiritual things, he has morsels of knowledge, it seems, about almost everything. You can talk to him for hours. I
as
told
soon
him
as
this hour would go
yeah,
by so fast.
as soon as I started stalking him about a week ago, was getting ready to do the promo for the show and started stalking him and looking at it. I knew an hour wasn't going to be enough. I didn't want to say anything, but I knew it just wouldn't be enough. So I'll get him back. I'm going to send him my address, send him some dates. We'll get him back.
And
But
of
yeah,
course,
very,
his
very
books
cool
are
dude.
available on Amazon and Kindle too, just like yours.
Very, very
Forgot to
cool.
say that, but they make really nice little reference books so you can look it up. So he'll make comfort birds for people out of different kinds of woods, depending on what kind of that they're trying to do or looking for. And sometimes people buy them and give them to sick family members,
Very
and
cool.
it's really nice.
Maybe get one for Joe, a healing one for Joe. I love you. I respect you. Couldn't have done today without you. Have a wonderful remainder of your Friday and your weekend. I will continue to pray hard for Joe and
Thank you.
keep me posted on that. Okay.
I will for sure.
All right, Annette, I love you. I'll see you
Love
later.
you. Great show. Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, brothers and sisters, that was a great show. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. USOCC.org or bishoplong.com. That's the church I belong to, and that's my bishop. If you're interested in night prayer, which is every weeknight at 7 p.m. Pacific, or Bible study, which is every Wednesday and Sunday afternoon at 5 p.m. Pacific, the links to those are there. We have a wonderful church page, the United States Old Catholic Church Clergy and Parishioners Facebook page. We accept everybody. If you're looking for a church, um, join that group. And if it doesn't turn out to be your thing, you can leave the group, but you can join the page anytime. Check that out. Check out Zach's website, communitypayitforward.us. Just go there, be pleasantly surprised. You guys know next week's guest will be Kelly Schaefer, paranormal investigator and author. She's been on before. You guys loved her. Looking forward to that. Eli Roth presents The Legion of Exorcists right now on every single streaming service known to man. If you haven't seen it, shame on you. Find it, check it out. I think you'll love the show. Um, it's also on Travel HD on demand. It just premiered in Asia, and I heard it's huge in Asia right now. So you can find me on Facebook as Lawrence Maurice, my stage name. Thank you to Things Network. Thank you to Pact, little p, capital ACT, Podcasting for All Coming Together channel. Thank you to Parapost Network. Thank you to Temple of Phoenix Rising Entertainment. And thank you to Spirit Alabama for all of these networks simulcasting my show. God bless you for that. And it is now bad joke time. I'm going to pull a bad joke that one of you sent in out of this haunted carnival barker hat. And it's my poor attempt to make everybody put a smile on everybody's face before I say good night. What did one wall say to the other? Meet me in the corner. Good night, Danny. Good night, Jack. Good night, Dog. Good night, Harold. Rest in peace. Good night, Ernie. Good night, Bill. Good night, Dan. I love you all. God bless you all in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Peace.